Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru, and I'm here to remind you that while the Writers Guild have reached the end of their strike, SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Guild, is still currently on strike, and we, of course, cannot make movies without actors, so we must still support them. So I'm going to include a link to both the Entertainment Fund and to their official website if you want to help them out more directly. And as I usually say in these intros, the corporates, support the unions, and let's get back to this review. Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jackula.
And today we're going to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, directed by Tammi, based on the video game series of the same name. And unfortunately, not a big fan of the video game series. I played the first game, had some good atmosphere, but it was mainly just jump scares. That's mainly what the game was all about.
Yeah, I feel about this one the way I feel about a lot of really popular internet horror. It does not get me off. It doesn't do anything for me.
I say all this to point out that I am not a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's in general. So naturally, I am not the audience for this movie, but I went into this movie with some high expectations for a couple reasons. Number one, Jim Henson doing the puppets in this movie.
Yeah.
And I will say this, the puppets in this movie, phenomenal. Jim Henson do a good job. They look great. They simultaneously look like the games, but also look real without getting too Uncanny Valley. Gotta give them credit for that. But unfortunately, the movie overall, I think, suffers from a couple things. The first one being its PG-13 rating holds it back really hard. Given the way certain scenes are filmed in this, it feels like there should be gore, but instead they just cut to black.
Yeah, because it's not filmed with any sort of actual intensity.
Yes.
Like, it's not like the American Ring remake where there's not a lot of gore, but it's a very scary movie.
That is a great example of a movie that, like, uses that rating to its fullest.
Yeah, it's probably the best example of a really good PG-13 horror movie.
Or even, like, I wanted to see the unrated cut of Megan, and I did, and I enjoyed it, but the PG-13 cut of Megan still worked.
Yeah, it still works.
Whereas this movie, it feels like building tension, building tension, building tension, and then instead of a release, you just get black screen.
Yeah.
And that's what happens most of the time. Now, there are a couple ways they could have relieved that tension. One is gore, which would be my preference. But the other one is to do what the games did, which is jump scares, which this movie, surprisingly, doesn't really
have any. Yeah, it doesn't have any jump scares. And I'm like, this is the one movie where I would have expected that.
And the worst part is, if they had used jump scares, it would have been earned because it does try to build that tension. Someone running down a corridor, they get stuck on a door, and then, like, the thing is slowly approaching them in the darkness, and you see, like, the flickering lights as it appears.
Yeah.
And so you think that it's going to end with it, like, exactly. But instead, it, like, will show the camera coming towards the person's face and then cutting to black. I've seen fan creations that are creepier than this movie most of the time. The second problem I have with this movie is something that's kind of inherent to Five Nights at Freddy's in general, and that's the plot of this movie is overly convoluted. There's a whole lot of plot getting in the way of this movie.
Oh, yeah,
to quote Joe Bob Briggs.
Yeah.
You have the initial premise of a down-on-his-luck security guard who is trying to look good in the eyes of the courts, so he needs to hold a job, so he takes this last-ditch effort job at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. It's a dead-end job, but at least it'll look good in court so that he doesn't lose custody of his little sister. But unfortunately, inside this Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria is Freddy and his animatronic friends coming to life and killing people. Now that, in and of itself, is a great, simple premise for a compelling movie.
That is enough for a horror movie. Yeah.
In my head, I'm imagining a movie like Last Shift or Malum, except it takes place over 4 days instead of one night, or 5 days instead of one night.
Yeah.
Watching a character slowly realize the creepiness that's happening inside this pizzeria, and maybe over the course of the movie learning more about why that creepiness is happening.
Yes.
Much like Last Shift or Malum. There's aspects of that in this movie, but then there's a whole bunch of extra shit that I didn't give two shits about.
Yeah, because, okay, first of all, there's a lot of lore with Five Nights at Freddy's, which they already were trying to cram in too much of the lore into this thing. But the other problem is on top of cramming in too much lore, it's got this weird extra plot with the main character bolted onto it.
Yeah, so you have the plot with the main character and his little sister and the custody battle between him and his aunt, right?
That's her only point in this plot is to be that foil.
It's specifically in the movie to give the character a reason to stay at the place all 5 nights.
Right.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
So you got that plot, but then you also have the fact that the main character has this backstory where his little brother was kidnapped by a serial killer in the 80s, never to be seen again.
And every night he takes a sleeping pill and listens to this music. Well, it's not really music. It's more like ambient noise and tries to remember the face of the person who took his brother.
Because apparently he has dream powers.
Yeah, and this ties into his little sister being able to talk to ghosts, which is a very Stephen King kind of like Shining-esque element.
Yeah, they got a Shining thing, which honestly, I didn't think was necessary at all.
I didn't think it was necessary either. So you have that on top of that other plot. Then you have everything that's in the spoiler section for like Freddy and the guy who ran the place and all that stuff. But then you also have this one cop who shows up and is like the exposition dumper of the movie. Kind of feels almost like they were written to be like every YouTuber explaining the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's to you.
Well, that's how it feels. There is a counterexample of an author who can make an exposition dump ratchet up the tension. It's the thing he was really good at, which is H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh yeah, H.P. Lovecraft.
H.P. Lovecraft's exposition ratcheted the tension up.
Oh, absolutely.
But usually it just makes it evaporate, as it does here.
This is one of those movies where it feels like the more you learn, the less tension there actually is, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now, if the movie was more entertaining, if it was scarier, if it was giving me some funner shit, like some gore or some splatter or something, then I might be able to forgive some of the flaws in the rest of the movie. But because it doesn't have any of that, I can't help but think about how so much in this movie doesn't make sense. It's like my script doctor section of my brain turns on.
Oh, yeah.
And I start thinking about like, well, I feel like you should rearrange this like this because then this would make more sense. A great example, there's a point in the movie in which the aunt hires a group of thugs to break into Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria in order to make the main character look bad at his job so that he loses the job and she can gain custody of the little sister. When I saw them setting up that plot, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great because they've set up all these other things, like he takes these sleeping pills and sleeps, so he's not actually paying attention to the security monitors. They're gonna break in and then like Freddy and his crew are gonna fucking decimate them, but it's gonna be happening on the monitors, but he's not paying attention because he's asleep and trying to do the dream thing. But instead, the way they set it up is he locks up at the end of the night, goes home, and then they break in after his shift.
Yeah, which makes no sense.
The movie tries to justify it in the very next scene when the cop character gets mad at him for his sleeping pills and is just like, oh, that could have been gross negligence. You didn't lock up or whatever. But except the way they broke in was not a way we have ever seen this character ever use.
Yeah, they break in through a side entrance that only exists for them to break into.
So if that side entrance was unlocked, it was unlocked the day he got the job. She's focusing on his sleeping pills. They didn't know about those sleeping pills.
Correct.
So this couldn't have been part of their plot. So their plot was just to break in when he wasn't on shift and then hope he was gonna fucking like get in trouble for that. Except they were also scoping out the place when he left, and they saw him walk out of the building with the cop who spent the whole night with him.
Yeah, so you would think they'd go like, oh, well, that cop could cover for him.
They would
so we'll come back.
So they know he had an alibi that entire night.
Yeah.
A witness.
Yeah, and a cop for that matter, like...
And that's the kind of like broken, make no sense writing this movie has. You might not think about it. It might make sense to you in the moment emotionally, but then when you think about it afterwards, you're like, wait, that made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
What the fuck was their plan?
Yeah.
And then you realize that there was a built-in way they could have made that scene work.
Yes.
And it would have been more compelling and more interesting.
Yeah. He could have just been out like a light.
Yeah.
They fucking trash the place, all die, and he wakes up and is like, what the fuck happened?
Because at this point in the movie, he's not supposed to know about the animatronics yet, so that's why they have it happen like when he's gone. But you had this built-in way where he wouldn't see anything anyway. He would just see the mess later and then have to frantically pick it up. Like,
right, and then the cop could show up the next morning and he's all like,
She could find the pills sitting there. Like, you could have like...
Yeah. You could have done a great like misdirect, a bait and switch.
It's one of those things where it feels like the script was was trying to solve problems inherent in the premise, and in solving the problems, it made the story, which was already convoluted, more convoluted.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there wishing the movie was simpler. I'm thinking simple like the first Five Nights at Freddy's game. Security guard, creepy things. If you need some logical reason for him to stay there all 5 nights, you can keep the fucking little sister plot, whatever.
Yeah. Let's be honest. They should have made it a daughter plot.
It could have been a daughter. Yeah, would have been fine. You don't even need the fucking evil aunt. You could just have it be the fucking state. I don't need him searching for like the serial killer who took his little brother plot.
No.
Like every time it cut to his fucking dreamscape with that, like I started to like doze off because I was just like, oh god, this again. Because they keep going back to that same dream over and fucking over again. It's like playing the same level over and over again in a video game.
Also, it ruins the menace of the animatronics.
It does. There's some things we're going to talk about in the spoiler section where these animatronics become less and less scary as the movie goes on. And once that happens, there's no more tension in the movie. At least it wasn't for me.
Yeah, just poof, it's just gone.
Yep.
At this point of the movie, you know what kind of movie this is. So you know certain things are not going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not going to actually, like...
Go there. There are some characters who die, but again, most of it is off screen. There's one really cool moment where a dude gets his face eaten, but it's so brief.
Yeah.
And it's the best sequence in the movie, but it's also the sequence that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I went in with very low expectations because I'm like, an actual Five Nights at Freddy's movie, this is going to suck on toes. With that said, it wasn't a complete failure.
Yeah.
But I still didn't like it.
Yeah, my feelings is this movie's like the definition of mid.
Yeah.
Like, there's some things that work, and there's a lot of things that don't. Unfortunately, most of the things that don't are the stuff that make me happy as a horror fan.
Exactly.
And those are the things that really don't work.
Let's give him the one good thing about this movie. One good thing. Matthew Lillard is in this movie.
Matthew Lillard is great.
He's great.
I like the animatronics. Most of the acting's okay, even if the writing's not. Matthew
it's
Lillard,
all right. It's passable. Matthew Lillard
he stands out.
Yeah.
He stands out. And
unfortunately, not in the movie very much, but
most of the humor lands, even if the horror doesn't.
Yeah.
Like that scene where like the lawyer's like, I shouldn't be here. And he kept fucking like getting up from his chair as they kept getting into more and more fucked up scenarios. Or the stuff with like the Uber driver. Like that shit made me laugh.
Yeah. One of the biggest problems for me is that the antics of the animatronics were neither particularly scary nor particularly fun.
Yeah, the animatronics themselves, there's one sequence where they do some fun things, and then the rest of the movie, they're really boring.
Yeah.
They look good.
But they don't do anything.
Exactly.
You know?
They don't even ooga booga.
Yeah.
I would have liked some ooga booga at the very least. At least that would have been like the games.
Yeah.
So, Five Nights at Freddy's. It's currently available in theaters and on Peacock. If you don't want to spend the money in theaters and everything we've just described feels like a warning to you, then just watch it on Peacock if you need to watch it.
Yeah.
If you're a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, obviously you're going to check it out regardless. If you're not a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, be warned.
This is not going to change your mind.
This is not going to change your mind. It didn't change mine.
No.
And with that said, let us move on to the spoilers so we can go even deeper into how much of a convoluted mess this movie is.
Yeah. Okay, so we got Josh Hutcherson, who's got a baby sister that he's taking care of.
Yep.
Because the parents have died of off-screen-itis.
Yeah, they died off-screen, and at some point in the 80s, he had a little brother that was kidnapped by a serial killer. Surprise! Kidnapped by the same serial killer who runs this fucking establishment.
Yeah, it's basically he's kidnapped by William Afton.
The most fucking obvious thing in the goddamn world.
Who's William Afton? It's Matthew Lillard. Like, you know that from the get-go, but you're like, it's so obvious.
Let me just break down another thing that doesn't make sense to me. And I'm sure for a lot of people, this isn't going to matter, but it was something that bugged me enough after the movie to where it really made the rest of the movie fall apart for me. He is a child killer.
Yep.
He created this Freddy Fazbear's Chuck E. Cheese knockoff thing.
Right, so he could kidnap
and kill kids, including the main character's younger brother. So, this guy does this. At some point, he hides the bodies of these kids inside the animatronics. The ghosts of the kids then take over those animatronics, and now he controls them. And now that it's been decades since then, he has them kill security guards who aren't aren't children. So I guess his MO changed from children to security guards?
Yeah, but you don't know why. It doesn't even go so far as to say what he's really doing is he's really killing people to power his like evil necromantic fucking animatronic things. And so each time someone dies, there's a new one. But that's not it.
No,
that doesn't happen.
That's not a thing in this movie. Anyway.
No.
Might be a thing in the games, I don't know, but not in this movie.
Nope.
But here's the thing, like, okay, there's a justification for Josh Hutcherson's character because he recognizes his name as like the brother of one of his old victims. I'm like, okay, there's a justification there. What about the dude in the opening?
In the opening, yeah, because it opens with the dude getting killed.
Yeah, so
like
obviously
a full-grown adult, the previous security guard, essentially.
Not just that, he has decided to start working as a fucking career counselor specifically to guide people to this place.
Yeah, which seems weird. Why wouldn't you just put an ad in the paper?
If you look at like some past slasher movies and things like that, Jason Voorhees kills teenagers because teenagers had sex and let him drown. And that's his whole motivation. It barely makes sense, but at least it tracks.
Yeah, there's a pattern.
There's a pattern.
You know?
He's also like falls into that category of victim who just lashes out at things now.
Yes.
Freddy Krueger goes after the children of the parents who killed him.
By the time they kind of stop drawing attention to that, he's basically getting revenge on people who survived previous movies.
Exactly.
So you're just sort of like, all right, that makes sense.
It's a never-ending cycle of revenge.
Yeah.
William Afton, at least in this movie, I can't speak for the games, doesn't have any of that.
He just at some point transitioned from children to security guards. I guess because security guards are what he could get. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm just sort of sitting there going, why is he killing all these people?
Here is my controversial statement about the plot of this movie. I would have liked it a lot better if he wasn't in it. I hate saying that because Matthew Lillard is amazing. But I'm fine with the backstory of these kids were killed by this serial killer, their bodies possess these fucking animatronics, and now they've been haunting this fucking premise.
They're gonna do what they can do.
Exactly, because they're angry spirits.
Yep.
So having these angry spirits of these kids tormenting every security guard that works at this place, that already works for me.
Yeah.
The only things at that point you need to explain are why he stays at the place.
And why somebody would hire a security guard to guard this location in the first place. And that's not even getting into one of the other aspects of this movie, which involves the kids possessing the Freddy animatronics, trying to turn the main character's little sister into one of them.
There's like 3 different movies in here that would have worked in isolation, but altogether it's really messy.
Yeah, they could have also done something like either William Afton or his daughter. He has a daughter in this movie, by the way.
Yeah, the cop turns out to be his daughter. And that's why she's sticking around, because she's actually...
Initially, I guess, helping her father, but ends up liking the main character so much, she switches sides. But to be perfectly honest, her motivations weren't super clear to me.
I was actually kind of hoping that she would split apart and she would be an animatronic.
Yeah, that would have been
amazing.
See, that's the kind of ridiculous over-the-topness that this movie could have used.
Yeah, totally.
It almost reaches that when
William Afton
actually shows up and starts ranting and raving.
Yeah, when he's in the fucking like bunny costume.
Which is why I almost feel bad saying he shouldn't be in this movie, because when he does show up, he does steal the show.
Yeah, he's the best part of the movie that actually exists, man. It's like you're watching Stu's dad in a bunny costume or something.
It is.
And you're like, I could have dealt with a lot more of this.
No shade to fucking Matthew Lillard.
No, none at all.
He knows what he's doing in
Yes.
this movie. He knows. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, I hope you enjoyed one of the rare negative reviews from Count Jackula and I on a recently released movie.
My socials are Twitter, @CountingJack, Blue Sky, @Count Jackula, TikTok, Real Count Jackula, Instagram, Satanic Jackula. But for the real deal, I stream here on YouTube, generally starting between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you should subscribe, hit the notification bell, and come join the streams.
Y'all know me, I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on Twitter, on Twitch, on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, Mastodon. Just look up the Horror Guru or Blood Splattered Cinema and I'll be there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you would like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, but we will certainly accept more. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, if you made it this far into the video, then I want you to comment below. And be sure to comment below using the hashtag 5 Nights at Mid. Use the hashtag 5 Nights at Mid. That way I know. That way Jack knows that you watched this vlog all the way through to watch two grown-ass men complain about a movie that was probably intended for children anyway. I hope you enjoyed your time.